Hey guys, so I got a lot of email from people after I wrote the first part of the of my guide on automating how you acquire, schedule, condition, qualify new leads, and a lot of you wanted to know how I'm using Drip's new workflows in my own business and double your freelancing. So I'm a big fan of email courses. Email courses, I think, and it's one of the things that whether or not you're selling more turnkey products like courses or books or software, or you're selling consulting, email courses are a great way to do two things. First off, to transfer information and transfer value in a way that's evergreen, meaning it's kind of permanent. You don't need to keep, you can set it once and forget it. And the other reason I like email courses over things like downloadable free reports or free ebooks or something like that is it keeps you kind of in the inbox of the recipient. It's a way to kind of build that relationship over time instead of having a PDF that gets lost in somebody's download folder. So, hopefully I don't need to sell you on the merits of email courses. They are hugely effective when it comes to double your freelancing. What they do for me is they're pretty much the main point of entry for most people who get onto my list. It helps them get immediate value from me. I get a lot of reviews from my email course, specifically Charge What You're Worth, about just how independently of anything, obviously it does promote double your freelancing rate, but even without that, it's something that I'm very proud of that people get a lot of value out of. So what I want to do is I want to show you how I've converted what used to be a more or less traditional email course, drip email course, into a more engaged, more interactive email course that so far, again, I've only had this up for about a week. It looks like engagement is about 50% higher, meaning the people who are going through the email course are filling out more of the worksheets, are engaging more with the emails. I'm getting a lot more responses to the emails I'm sending out, to the lessons I'm sending out, which is better for me and better for them. So let me walk you through what I've done. So the typical email course looks something like this. So you have, let's say, in this case, I have 9 lessons, and each one is separated by 2 days. And then, what often happens, and this is kind of standard across the board, the first email, the first lesson has a huge open rate, and then it just kind of fizzles out as you get to the last lesson. And having talked with a lot of people who have email courses, this is pretty standard, like this decay, I guess. And what I've done, and so this was my original email course. It was 9 lessons, followed by what I call the bridge, which I'll show you in a second, followed by the promotion of double your freelancing rate. These are the things that I used to do, or this is the way that used to be done. I'm not going to focus too much on the pitch part of the email sequence. Basically, what happens is you would get all nine of the lessons, and then you would get promoted. Double your freelancing rate is a way to dive a lot deeper what I into what I cover, in the free course. But what I want to drill into is something that I think is going to be really, really big for people who are creating email courses. Hopefully, this is you, and something that I've learned in setting up this new drip workflow for when I converted over my email course from being a standard, 9 lessons separated by 2 days apart each, to Drip's workflow, to Drip's new workflow functionality. So what I want to cover, and what I think is really important for you to consider, is when I send out a lesson, what happens is I link people to a worksheet. So each email has a worksheet. Let me show you what that worksheet looks like. So when somebody clicks through to, let's say, lesson one's worksheet, what I'm having them do is I'm having them think about what I just covered and apply it to their own business. So, think through how did you figure out what you were worth the first time you ever priced a project? How have you raised your rates in the past? There's also a few things like here, where did you hear about this, that helps me long term. It helps you understand where, if somebody's coming directly to the course, where did they actually find out about it originally? Another thing that I do, which is really, really helpful, is I ask people point blank, what are you hoping to get out of this course? And what that does is, I read all these and it helps me see, is what I'm producing aligning with what people are expecting? Sorry about that. Cat had to get in the office. So that's so most of these questions that I ask are for them, but I also have some that are for me. When somebody fills this out, they get a copy of the worksheet, kind of for their own records. But I also get sent a copy so I can see, kind of like who's going through the email course and so on. This has been huge for me because it helps me understand who's going through the course, what they're learning from it, and so on. But it's also what I've heard just resoundingly from everyone is how helpful it's been to have kind of a forced way to convert what it is they just learned into something. So what I used to do was, you'd fill this out and then 2 days later you'd get lesson 2. But one of the things I wanted to try, which was now doable with the new workflow editor, is what if when they fill out the worksheet, they get sent the next lesson immediately? So instead of needing to wait 2 days, what if I could then send them that next lesson? And that's what I've done. So if you look here at the workflow for my email course, once somebody joins, they're sent lesson 1, and then I wait 2 days, just like I have before. And then you'll notice, I don't want to get too technical here, but I'm sending this event here, this forced completed CWYW lesson 1 event. And all that does is it now moves them on to lesson 2. But one of the things I want to bring to your attention is I have two different, so if you think of like, this top part here is the first lesson, and then down here is the next lesson. There are two ways of getting to the next lesson. The first is to fill out the worksheet itself, which is completed CWYW lesson 1. Or you can wait 2 days and then you'll get sent lesson 2 automatically. And what's been really cool about this is you can see here that, I've had this going for about a week, and now the cat wants to get back up. I've had it going for about a week, and we've had 328 people go through the email course. 77 of them have filled out the worksheet, before the 2-day timer kind of fires. 202 of them have, not filled out the worksheet, and therefore they're then getting lesson 2. And what that's done is it made it so people who fill out lesson 1 immediately, they then get sent lesson 2 immediately. I've seen some people who literally the same day that they opt in, they go through all 9 lessons in one sitting. That's great for them because they're dialed in, they're tuned in, and so on, and they're still getting kind of that relationship built with me over time. Although if you're not filling out the worksheets, let's say you're just digesting the lessons, then you're getting each email just like every other email course, which is, every 2 days and the next lesson. And that's something that I've done. It's only been doable through the worksheets, or through the workflow functionality that Drip has just pushed. So I do a lot of things, like I'm integrating Gravity Forms, which is how the worksheets get submitted, using their Drip plugin to fire off the completed CWYW lesson 1 event, which then moves the person down, and so on. So that's basically how it's set up. One thing that I want to also bring to your attention real quick is you'll notice here I have what's called a decision tree that says, did the subscriber perform the completed CWYW lesson 1 event? And the people who do that have all submitted the worksheet, of that lesson. And if they have, then they get applied a tag in Drip. So I can actually see, like, I can run a search that says, show me everyone who's filled out lesson 1. But on top of that, I do this little, this is called a liquid tag, what you see in these curly brackets. And what's happening here is I have kind of like a lead score specific to this email course. So what I'm doing here is I'm taking the existing score, which at lesson 1 is always going to be blank or 0, or rather blank. I'm going to default it to 0 if it doesn't exist yet. And then I'm going to add 1. And you'll see I do that for each of the 9 lessons. And at the end, what I do is, let me show you this. At the end, when they finish the 9 lessons, if their score is greater than or equal to 5, meaning they filled out 5 or more of the 8 worksheets that I give out, I send a notification email, which sends an email to myself. And what that email has is it has all the worksheet submissions that they have submitted, along with their contact info and everything else. And then I just, I get a lot of these worksheet submissions. I mean, in the last week alone, I've gotten, it's hard to, 19, 23, 25, 25, 38, 52, 77. So in the last, I've gotten probably 200 or something. I can't, I try to read them all, but it sometimes gets hard. But I get a force notification when somebody passes 5 or more worksheets, meaning this is somebody who has really put the effort into the email course. I get this notification email. I review what they've written in the worksheets, and then I usually will send them just an email through my Gmail. It's not automated or anything. Just hey, so and so, thanks again for going through the free course. I read through your lessons, and I'll make comments about what I saw. Blah 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 blah. And that does a lot, I think, for just improving the relationships I have with usually the people going through this are new. They're new to my stuff. And sorry, we've got a lot of cats here today. And I found so far just by doing that, it's so helpful. It's just a great way to really get to see who's really engaged, who's really dialed in, and so on. So again, in terms of engagement, the number of worksheet submissions that I've gotten in the last week, there hasn't been any, I haven't promoted the email course in any different way or anything, has been about 50% over the historical week by week average. So I'm really happy with just how, I think one of the problems is when you send out lesson 1, somebody fills out lesson 1's worksheet, and then they're like, crap, I need to wait, 2 days. And I used to get a lot of email from people saying, hey, could you send me lesson 2 right now? Or could you send me lesson 3? And, my response was always, well, you kind of need to wait. Well, what I like about this is it's kind of the default, it does the default, wait 2 days, send the next email, wait 2 days, send the next email, and so on. But if somebody is really engaged with what you're doing, they can get the lessons really in one go. They can fill out lesson 1's worksheet, and then they automatically get sent lesson 2. So it's been really helpful. So again, if you're going to be doing any sort of email course, I know a lot of the people in double freelancing clients right now, they're actually planning their email course now. Hopefully this helps, especially if you're using a tool like Drip. In Infusionsoft, you can kind of do things like this. It's a little more complicated because Drip makes it really easy to have these sort of external events. Like in this case, we have an external event when Gravity Forms submits something. When that's triggered, we then go to the next stage. And what I like about it too is it's visual. It's very, it's like I mentioned in that guide I just wrote on my blog. It's kind of like a Plinko board, right? You start from the top and then you go down. Granted, there's only one kind of linear path people go down, but you could see with these decision trees how it could become very. I could start doing things like if they say that they have been, like you'll notice here, how long have you been freelancing? I could say if they choose like less than a year or I have not started yet, they could go down one path of the email course and then everyone else could go down another path. And I could change the content based off of where somebody is experience-wise. The possibilities are literally endless. This is a very basic version of it, but as you saw, you can do a lot of really interesting things that not only make the email course more valuable for the subscriber because it's going to be more tailored to them. You can do a lot of fun things like I'm asking them when they opt in, are you a developer, a designer, a writer, and so on. I can start really sending different lesson content depending on what you chose or giving different examples. So, developers might get one example, a designer might get another example in a lesson. A lot of room for improvement in this, but so far, this change alone to this more self-paced way of doing the email course has been, already yielded what looks to be a 50% improvement in engagement from what I was doing before, which was the standard wait 2 days between each email. So hopefully this has helped. If you have any questions about any of this stuff, feel free to drop me a line or yeah. And I'm also Brennan Dunn on Twitter if you want to tweet me. I'm usually a little more responsive on Twitter. So, yep, hopefully this has helped.